everyone, how are you doing today? I join you with a partially done face right now. My foundation and concealer are on, and then I'm going to go through all the face steps with you because I'm using this Physicians Formula Butter Dream Team face palette. And I was sent this recently in PR, and then I felt like, you know how you get a certain car and then you feel like you're seeing that car everywhere? I noticed that Walmart had this in stock. I've seen on Ulta's website they have this, and it's a multi-face palette that I feel is very, very practical. It's about 15 bucks, and it looks like you're getting the full-size pans of product in here. And it's a situation where I wouldn't always love a palette like this necessarily just by default, but for the shades that are in here and the variation of products, having like a regular powder, a few of these things, you know, I've definitely reviewed on their own before, so they're going to sound a little familiar, but having them all together in a pretty compact palette is, I think, a very practical move for Physicians Formula. You know, usually we've got these bulky compacts, and here it's like, boom, here's 6 items, nice and flat. And like I said, around 15 bucks at Walmart for all that, like that's a really good deal. So just to go through what is in here, we have 2 different bronzers. One is the butter bronzer, just like I think the regular standard version that they make. And then, you know, they've gone on and made some deeper versions of that, but this is the lightest. Now, one thing I will say about this palette, I always think whenever a full face palette comes out, there needs to be a deeper option. There just has to be, because it's really truly only going to cater to so many faces, right? And they've done some good things here, like this blush. This could cater to a lot of people. The highlight as well. This powder, maybe, but this bronzer for a deep skin tone, deeper rich skin tone, that might turn out to be not that beneficial at all. So I'm just throwing that out there. This is the Matte Minoy Butter Bronzer. This turns out to be definitely a little bit deeper, and I like working with that as a contour. This is the Butter Blush. They say they've included the shade Saucy Mauve here, but it's totally different from the individual that I have. Like 2 completely different shades. This is much deeper. However, I do own the single products of these, the Butter Believe It blush in Pink Sands, I believe that's called. Yeah, and then they've got this Butter Believe It face powder. Those do seem very consistent to what I have in a single standalone product. And there's some kind of unique ways you can use this blush I'm excited to show you. And then we also have the Butter Highlighter, and that is in the shade Champagne. And this is kind of that creamier texture. It makes me think of like a ColourPop highlighter. Sometimes I feel like it applies a little bit better with a finger than just a straight up brush. So all in all, for me, for my skin tone, for my preferences on products, this works really well. I could use it probably as eyeshadow too. I might do that today just to stretch it even further. It says vacay mode right there. Wouldn't this be a nice thing to toss in a bag and just be able to use it and not take so many individual compacts? I can't think it shocks anybody that I like this, because when I made the Needs palette with Makeup Revolution, you know, we were seeking to do that kind of full face vibe and accomplish it all, and this is kind of trying to do that, I feel. So again, I've got my foundation and concealer on, and I wanted to go definitely matte today so you could see where the glow is coming from through the products in the palette. So I'm wearing my Wet n Wild Photo Focus foundation in soft beige and my Incognito concealer in light beige. Am I right? Yes, light beige. So that plus all my skincare and sunscreen, that's what's on my face. Then we can go into this Butter Believe It face powder, and this is kind of like layered, as you can see. So if you want to really get the lightest bit of it, you can go into the top part. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. But I've enjoyed this powder. I think it's nice and soft. It's creamy feeling. It really doesn't deposit a lot of color on the face, so it could turn out to be one of those powders that pretty much anyone could deal with, you know? It's not a coverage product. But here's a neat thing. This blush is really light. I can get some color out of it, but not a ton. But I think her name's Stephanie Letta. She'd been on YouTube for a long time, but I ran into her on TikTok talking about this. And you know how like the light pink setting powders for the under eye are a really hot thing right now? Like, I think you still can't get the Huda cherry blossom powder or whatever, but look what you can do here. You can kind of go into this powder, get some lightness on your brush, and then dip into that pinky blush, and you can use that as like a brightening pinky toned under eye setting powder. I think that's so cool, because this blush does turn out to be very, very light. So I thought that was a neat little idea. And then if you want to set all over your face, just grab another brush, and then I would be more prone to going to the bottom part of this Mosaic powder and just using that all over. And it works fine. It does not look too heavy. It does not look too cakey, but it is pretty matte. Like, we're staying with a very matte look right at this time. And then I'm going to go to these bronzers, and I'm going to use this one as my main, like, kind of chiseling type of bronzer. And then I'll use this one just to add a little sun all over. So this is the Matte Manoy Butter Bronzer. I know I've used this one before, but I feel like I haven't talked about it a whole lot. But it makes, I think, much more of an impact than the shade of regular butter bronzer that they put in here. I've always been a fan of the Sculpting butter bronzer. If you buy an individual, that shade is really like deep, but it works so well. Shirt from Walmart, by the way, love it, $5. We're going into like the hottest week ever. Seems like we've got an excessive heat warning around here. It's going to be like the kind of weather where you want to go outside and go to the playground, but yet it's like too hot to use the slide. It's crazy. I really feel for those people who have to be working outside in this kind of weather. Okay, so you see what we're getting here? Really natural, kind of chiseled look, and still everything on the face is super matte. That will change. And we're just taking it around the hairline too. It's pigmented. It's not too like flaky and soft. I'm putting my brush in and it's not kicking up any like problematic powder. None of these are. And there were some recent releases that were terrible about that. It was that like bread and butter collection. Remember that? Those products were just like powder bombs. Okay, so we're getting a little contour going there. And then I can go into my regular butter bronzer and just like warm up the skin more, thinking about the tops of the cheeks where the sun would naturally hit, and it won't overwhelm because it's not too dark. For lighter skin tones, maybe that one does make a good contour, but for me, I'll use it lightly to give the whole entire skin tone a bit of a boost. And you know what's really funny? On the hottest day of the year, this is the coffee mug I pulled out because I like my large ones, and my one that says Emily was still in the sink from last night. So we'll use the snowflake. Try to think cool thoughts. For blush, what I'm going to first do is show you this one, okay, just so you can, if you haven't seen me use this blush before on its own, you can kind of see what level it gives. You can still see it. I'm not saying it's like non-existent, but it is much lighter than the other, which I'm glad about. I'm glad there's range. I don't need two blushes of the exact same intensity in one palette necessarily. So there's that. See, soft natural blush, probably the level of blush that a lot of people want to be at. But then, like I said, we have this. I want to show you the difference. There's my individual Saucy Mauve, and there's the new one. This Saucy Mauve individual is actually a dupe for one of the shades in my Beauty Bakery Cotton Candy Champagne palette. But just look at the difference between these two. There's the individual, there's the one in the palette. So I'm not like upset about that being a deeper, more pigmented, more colorful blush. I just think, just name it something new, you know? And it could be the fact that they're really trying to put like known products in the palette, you know what I'm saying? Like not just a bunch of limited edition things, but you feel like you're actually getting a slice of the brand in here. So that's maybe what they're reaching for. But this definitely has some sheen in it, okay? I feel like the regular butter bronzers also have maybe the slightest bit of a sheen. It doesn't come off real profound on the skin, especially because you're wearing that bronzer so sheer, but definitely some sheen in this as compared to like that blush down there. So we're gonna lightly pick some up, tap off the excess, and enjoy a really pretty rosy flush here that I love. That is just, see, I love blushes like that. But really show, they liven up the face. And you know what? If you're like, hey, that was too much, I just overdid it. Look what you got right there handy. You've got this, and you could kind of swirl under it to better define, or you could just go over it. But I'm all about that. Just go easy. Go easy with that one. I kind of tap off on the back of my hand even a little bit, and then apply. Just really kind of pleasantly surprised by this product. Look at that. Now you're starting to see some sheen, right? Kind of on the top of the cheek from that blush. Super pretty. And then we have our highlighter here. So that's our butter highlighter in the shade Champagne. Like I said, a little different texture than everything else in this palette. And what I'm gonna do is kind of like apply it off of my finger like that. And then I'm gonna go in with my setting brush. Just because this brush blends it well, but it doesn't, I don't necessarily love the way it picks it up from the pan, if you know what I mean. So swipe it on and then just blend it with probably whatever highlighter type brush you like to use. And look at that. Really pretty. And when I first got this palette, I glanced at that highlight and I thought maybe too deep, you know, maybe too golden. But, you know, I really like the goldeny nature of that highlight called Let's Bolt from the Balm that was in their multi-face palette. That newer Balmbina palette, you know, they've got that golden Let's Bolt highlight and it's actually stunning on. And a big thing to remember about highlights is that when you wear them sheared out, they don't look as gold, you know, they don't look exactly how they look in the palette when they're sheared out on the cheeks. So look at that, isn't that nice? And texture wise, hasn't really changed a thing, okay? Even though that's kind of a creamy texture, I can't feel that on my skin. And we might do a little bit like highlight the Cupid's bow. Maybe we just get a little right up here and then, like I said, go over and blend. It's a nice palette, you guys. I'm into it. I can even go over that highlight with a beauty blender. That's what I used to apply my foundation today. You can kind of like make it feel even more worked into the skin. But I'm loving this look and I'm loving the convenience factor of having those things in one palette. Standard things that the brand makes, maybe with one little quirky exception there. But it's very nice, very handy. What I would say is if you're going to use this on the eyes, because of this creamy texture that I don't think is designed to like be a completely setting kind of thing, I wouldn't probably swipe that creamy highlighter on the eyes. If I were going to do an eye look, I would probably do like this in the crease and maybe some of the lighter part of this powder on my lid. I can do that for you actually. I'll go ahead and do my brows and then we can throw together a little eye look. But for the face primarily, I think this is a really great deal actually, and I'm enjoying using it and just grabbing for it and having so many steps all in one. So okay, I'm going to do the brows and I'll be right back. So brows are done and I've put on Milani eyeshadow primer, and then we're just going to make an easy little look here by going into our matte butter bronzer. So this is just the deeper of the two and giving a little crease color here. Super easy way to do that. And like I said, these colors are smooth. I'm tapping in. I'm not getting a bunch of fallout. That's what you want. Like if this was super fussy and super powdery, like I would not feel the same way about it. Profusion crease brush, just a light crease. I could build it up a little more. Sure, why not? We had a movie night last night and it was so much fun. We watched Lion King and then the girls got to stay up a little bit longer and they saw the start of Frozen 2. We each picked a movie, put it in a hat, drew out what we were gonna watch, bought some fun like movie candy and popcorn, and it was just fun, you know? Here's your reminder that you don't have to be doing something big and extravagant for your kids to have an absolute blast and feel like they're doing something really special. Part of it is planning, you know, come up with an idea, talk it up, and take input from them on how you're going to do it. And they'll enjoy the heck out of that, okay? All right, so for the eyelids, I'm going into the lighter part of that powder. And I'm just going to use that for a little bit like a lighter shade contrast. Like I said, I would steer clear of loading on a bunch of that actual highlighter shade because that's kind of creamy. And then I could go back to this and just put a little of that bronzer again on the lid. I mean, easiest eye look ever. It's like eyeshadow that doesn't really look like eyeshadow. You feel me? I'm gonna do lashes and lips and I'll be right back. For the lips, you guys, I wanna save the gloss because it's so satisfying. I want you to see it. This is the Mink lip liner from Revlon. So this is the color you get out of that. It's rosy. It's kind of a cool, like soft berry type of shade, actually. It's really pretty. And by the way, on my lashes, it's just this Physicians Formula Diamond Mascara. Actually a pretty decent mascara. But then the gloss that I've been putting over top is this Wet n Wild Mega Slicks in the shade Call Me Boss. It's kind of shimmery. It looks sort of rose gold. It definitely has some sheerness. Like if you wore it on its own, you wouldn't see a ton of color. But look at it over the top of this. Look at the shine. Like there's shimmer in the gloss, so it's giving you kind of a next level shine. I put it all the heck over. That's something to get excited about. I'm sorry. Like you added just a little shimmer a little bit of color, and that shine. It's life-giving. Great combo. So guys, this is the look that I did with this palette. Like I said, the only other coverage products, if you're liking the way the skin's looking overall, it was Photo Focus and Incognito Concealer. I would recommend this if you got some holes in your collection. You're like, I need a setting powder, I also need a highlight, blah, blah, blah. This is a nice little product 6-pack, and you will pay more for it at Ulta. I think it'll be closer to $20, whereas it's more like $15 at Walmart. So just know that. Only a couple things could have made this better for me. Number one, knowing that there's a deeper version out there. I think that would be great of this brand to do because they make deeper bronzers. You know, they make a sculpting version of this bronzer and several other darker shades. So like do that, maybe keep the blush color, put something different here. I don't know, but create that option for people. Another thing that could have made this even better would have been a mirror up here, because if you really are in vacay mode and you're traveling, that could be really handy. A mirror the size of this lid would be great. Now they'd probably charge us a little more for this palette then, but I think that'd be a nice place to have a mirror. But quality wise, for what's in there, for how it works for me, I am very, very pleased. I'm liking what's happening and I think it's a good deal. So thank you guys so much for your time today. I hope you enjoyed this little video and I will see you again soon. I love you. Bye.